Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's Sitzi Sunday, and today I'm hoping that we can all come together in community healing and wellness and offer some guidance. Particularly today, I'm going to talk about divorce and the stigma that still occurs within our Arabi community. So before I get started, I'm just going to give folks a few minutes to hop on. For those of you that have attended my lives before, hey, Mira, good to see you. I'm in a new location today. Speaking of Arabi culture, I am in San Francisco visiting my parents. And I know last week on the live, I talked about Arabi parents. So before I move into today's topic, I just wanted to loop us back to last week. And it's really, really interesting to me. I am a trained clinician. I have tools. I'm mindful of the tools. I try and meditate and wellness and all that. Yet I can easily go back and be here at home and literally regress to that rebellious teenager I once was. Now, I feel like it's better. And every time I'm around my family or my parents, I get better. However, there's still that moment where perhaps I didn't communicate effectively or I had gotten upset. And so I wanted to validate to each and every one of you as you're learning these tools, as you're trying to heal within, that there are going to be times that you may not communicate in a way that you're going to feel good about, or you may not engage in a behavior that's in alignment with your values. And I'm going to say, please be gentle to yourself, be kind to yourself, that it is a work in progress, and try not to punish yourself for perhaps responding in the way that you did or acting in the way that you did, because a lot of times we're in these very intense Arabi families that are relentless, and they will push and push and push to get the reaction perhaps that they're needing for whatever reason. So I wanted to just address that. The other piece I wanted to address is I've noticed a couple of comments, not too many, where folks are saying that when I have expressed each and every individual taking accountability, taking responsibility, really owning your own healing, that for some folks, they perceive that as blame. And I want you guys to know, I never come from a place of blame. It is about awareness. And I'm really sorry if people have internalized some of that communication from that place of blame. As a mental health provider, as a practitioner, as someone who believes in our wellness and elevating ourselves to a healthier, joyous life, please know it is never about blame, and being able to say, how can I take some accountability and responsibility? Now, of course, when it comes to trauma, or when you're a child, or the things that have happened to you, you are never at fault, ever, 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 ever. That's not what this is about. This is not even excusing the toxic person's behavior or making it okay. If anything, I follow a guy, his name is Patrick Teahan, Teahan, if you guys really want to get a good sense of just honoring the individual, not allowing these toxic people or harmful people to affect your life, you'll know it's never about blame, and always about how we can supersede these terrible situations in a way that will keep us in our wellness. So let's talk about divorce. I can tell you, as someone who divorced within our culture, that it is quite interesting, and in speaking to many Arab around divorce and what that means to them, that the stigma of divorce, while better, is still pretty high in our culture. There's messages of, if you divorce, you are a failure, right? they, as a woman, because so much of our virtue is tied to, perhaps now it's a little different, tied to our virginity. Back then, like when you're divorced, all of a sudden now your virtue is compromised. And what does that mean? So if you are thinking about divorcing or going through or have divorced and you're holding on to this shame, just know that that shame is not yours to hold. Received. These are the cultural messages that we have received, that divorce is failure. Now, one thing I can tell you, if you are in a relationship, it is so important that you and your partner, married or not, work on yourselves. So the best outcomes are each person working on themselves, and then working together with a couples counselor or working together with someone to navigate some of the more difficult issues. Now, I always say to folks, what modeling did you receive from your parents or the people that raised you or the people around you that was healthy and whole around couples communication? What modeling did people get? Now, if there was no modeling, or if there was nobody teaching you how to communicate, or if there was no example, how do we expect ourselves to know these things? So again, I always offer my clients or anybody I'm working or talking to say, offer yourself some grace. We have no modeling around this whatsoever. And so many of us have had no modeling. So you're learning, think of it as learning a new skill, and you're learning how to talk to your partner's learning to talk to you. Now, when it comes to healthy relationships, you have to remember your partner may be terrified to explore what may be going on within them. They may be so scared. That mental health, it's like opening up Pandora's box. So I always say, implement some patience, particularly usually with the women, is have some patience if you're introducing this to your husband or your partner, that it may take 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 times. Usually, unfortunately, it's threatening divorce. And then the guy finally wakes up, usually in my experience, and he says, oh gosh, okay, I need to do something. She's really going to leave me now. Now, because إحنا بنات العرب, I have to say, in general, we have to be really, really, really careful. Because our frustration tolerance is very, very, very high. The people pleaser is very high. Now, what happens with people pleasers, if you don't address your resentments early on in your partnership, they just keep building and building and building. And what do we know about people pleasers? That once they are done, they are done. And it's very hard to turn that back on. So I always say, when you're in your partnership, please try and address things, even as uncomfortable as they are, sooner than later, because it's going to be really key to maintain a healthy, loving marital or partnership, not just marriage, but just in your partnership, by addressing things as they come up versus like a lot of our mothers, where they just let it build and build and build to the point where their resentment and their bitterness and their negativity is so deep that as children, many times we want to heal that. It's just, it's not a good scene. So when it comes to healthy partnerships, you cannot row a boat with one oar, because what happens when you're rowing a boat with one oar? Circles and you don't go anywhere. So I always say, how do you gently encourage your partner to address some of the issues that they may be going through that's impacting your marriage, that's impacting the communication within your marriage? And many times it's speaking to, and I know people say, Tiffany, are you infantilizing my husband, or are we infantilizing? No, we're not infantilizing anybody, but we're speaking to that little boy, or even speaking to that little girl inside of them that's in pain. Now, going back to toxic relationships, which I've talked about on previous lives, if there is no insight, completely shut down, if it's hostile towards you, if it's berating you, or any of these negative behaviors, if there's no open, shut down is one thing, but if there's a vehement response to you, I would say proceed with caution. And you may have to really rethink your own values and what you're seeking in your own relationship. Because one thing I can say from my experience, personally and professionally, and in speaking to Arab. Now, let's talk about Arab and divorce real quick. I call it the Arabi scarlet letter, right? Anybody that's divorced, it's like they have this D. Remember the Scarlet Letter, the book? Yeah, there's like this D ala their chest, right? And it's like they're divorced. Arabs say the most insensitive things in general. Like I remember, I could speak to myself. They would say, "Yee ikhsara," right? Like, what a waste. And I thought, oh my gosh, here I feel empowered. I took these steps for myself. I was protecting my daughter, and I was protecting myself and protecting my energy. And it was viewed as ikhsara, like a waste. And I thought, yeah, wow, if I didn't have my sense of self, you're already grieving the loss of the relationship. You're already grieving what you wanted. Most people don't want a divorce. Most people want a long-term loving relationship. And that's what I think we forget as a culture, the empathy towards the person. Even when I talk to men in our culture who have been divorced, that shame and those failure pictures are just as entrenched as it is with women. And for the men, maybe they don't get the outright, like, oh, he can get married again, or not this one. She's going to be alone for the rest of her life because she's now damaged goods or whatever they think. You have to remember, for the guys, it's also that they couldn't be there for their children or protect their children. And you have to remember, sometimes the Arabi women because everybody has their crap. Everybody has their stuff. And sometimes these men deal with toxic, manipulative, awful behaviors that are every day you're put down. Every day you're not, they tell you you're not about nothing. Every day they're being put down in the same way many women are put down. So I'm saying, let us be sensitive to one another. Let us understand that marriage or relationships are very hard. I always say it is not for the weak. You have to really understand your triggers, understand that your past experiences, and how not to allow it to seep into your current partnership or your mother's messaging around men. I've had women, they'd say, yeah, my mom says men are useless. But your husband's not useless. Yet you're interacting with him kul yom, every day, as if he's useless. How do you think he's going to feel in that? It's extremely disempowering. So I'm encouraging all of you, those that have gone through divorce or that are thinking of divorce, before you go through the actual act of divorce, to really say to yourself, have I done everything that I possibly could in this partnership? And if you didn't do, I've seen couples that were literally on the brink of divorce, like they're like, Tiffany, khalas, that's it. I'm done with this guy, or I'm done with this girl. I'm out of here. And I say, okay, look, take a deep breath. Can we slow down just a little bit? And let's ask yourself, are there ways you can communicate better? Are there ways you can gently speak to that part of them that's so wounded and so shut down, from a place of gentleness and kindness and love and understanding and compassion? Because I know sometimes إحنا العرب, we're feisty. We're feisty people, and sometimes we say feisty things that may not be that nice. And I've heard some things that people say to their partners. I'm like, especially the non-Arab, you're like, at least Arabi men, maybe they're used to that. But the non-Arabi guys, they're like, what is happening? This is too much عليهم. It's too intense. So I say, slow down. Once you slow down, it's about, sometimes we have to hold a line with your partner to say, look, this is not going to work for us long term. I'm not threatening divorce, because threatening divorce is probably one of the most toxic things you could do in your partnership if you're married. Do not bring up the divorce word. It's like you're already 1 foot out the door. You say, I want to work with you. I want to be with you. I want us to be a family together. I want us to be good for each other. Staying just for the kids, that's why you see so many Arab, they'll stay married for like 20, 30 years, especially the ones that got younger. And by the time their kids are in college or they're out of the house, they're like, that's it, I'm done. Now you have to remember, there's a stigma. Oh, you're divorced, broken home. I say, well, is it broken if the two people divorce and they're both healthy and happy, and then the kids get the best of the two parents? Or is the broken home the one where the two parents are together and they're engaging in fighting, toxic behavior, manipulation, roping the kids in, triangulation? Like, which home is broken? And what messages are you giving your own children, if you have children, about relationship? That's why we see so many people delaying marriage, so many young people. And I said, good, better for you to delay than to make the wrong choice or to make a poor choice. That they're saying, well, look at all the examples I have around me. Doesn't make it look that appealing to the guys or the girls. And because most of the women, and this is in general what I see, and it's not to say have your standards, it's not to say ask for what you need, but what they've gone so far on this side of the pendulum, where their mothers never asked for their needs. Now the younger generation, they're asking for everything. And the guys are like, whoa, wait a minute. This is too much. This is too overwhelming. Again, I don't want you to lower your standards at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, take a look at some of the demands and ask yourself, is this truly in alignment with who I am and who I want to be? In the same way, the guys in general, they want their mothers, right? I remember one time one Arabi guy said, are you going to cut up my fruits and vegetables? I said, how old are you? 12? Like 3? This is not even 12. How old are you? So I always say, I'm not your mother. And you don't want to be your partner's mother. That's the least sexy thing in any marriage or in any partnership. But because إحنا بنات العرب, we're giving, doing, they stay stuck in this cycle. Many of the men, they stay stuck in this cycle of not growing because we're constantly trying to fix it for them. And that also leads to frustration, burnout, and divorce. Now, if you did divorce, I know, it's true story. Do you have story? I'm sure everybody has stories like that, right? Right? Of the Arabi guy demanding stuff or the Arabi girl asking for something so ridiculous. It's true. I've seen it. Anyway, yeah, it is. Sometimes we have to laugh about these heavy things because we have to keep light and levity to create that healing within ourselves. So back to relationships and divorce. I know I'm mixing both, but I always tell everybody in my life, I never want to see anybody divorce. I really don't. I love when couples can move together and be in a better place. So I think I mentioned earlier, I've had friends, I've had clients, I've had like literally the brink of divorce. When they slow down, they learn to communicate, they acknowledge their part, they hold their boundaries, they take a step back, they don't try and solve it, that slowly the other person will start to shift. Only if they're willing to shift. As I said, there has to be a willingness, a curiosity, an openness to want to feel better. Again, if they're shut down, if there's addiction, if there's the trauma is so severe that it's very difficult for them, I don't know how likely. I just say you can do it, but it's going to be a very, very long road. And what are you willing to risk to stay in that partnership? And only you can answer that for yourself. The other piece is getting support. Now, you can get that support from elders who can offer guidance. You can do that through a therapist, a good, solid couples therapist. It's really important to vet the couples therapist because there's a lot of ones that aren't that good. So make sure you ask for referrals, ask other people that have had success, and you want to make sure that the couples therapist specializes or at least has knowledge of our culture. Because if they don't, they're not going to understand half the things that we do and why we do things. Because I also see with a lot of Arabi couples, this battle between the families. And that's one thing. It's sort of like, whose family is better? What family do we do what for? It's this even, we have to be even. And that also, holidays can get overwhelming. Any kind of gatherings, bridal showers, baptisms, birthdays, anything becomes so much drama. And how do you navigate that? And so you need a couples counselor that's going to be able to understand some of those issues and nuances and really help the couple. And this is, at least I could speak to what I do in my work, is to really help the individual to say, what's in alignment with the two of you? You two need to be on the same page. But if your partner is aligning with the family over you, this is where discord can occur. And so you have to ask yourself, what is that about? Is there fear? Is there fear of abandonment? What is happening for your partner? Male or female, it doesn't matter. What happens to your partner when there's this alliance? Now, in any healthy partnership, the alliance has to be the two of you. It's like the two of you against the kids, the two of you against the world, right? And they say, against the kids. I said, oh yeah, kids can ruin a marriage. Nobody likes to talk about that. I always tell people, kids are fun ruiners. They're beautiful, they're loving, they're amazing. However, they could really impact if the couple focuses too much on the child or the children and not enough on their own marriage. Resentment builds, burnout builds, lack of sexy time builds, and then the family. Now it's like there's a hole in your coat of armor, right? And now the families can swoop in and really run amok in your marriage or your partnership, which again can lead to divorce. So I'm going to have you think about, if you are thinking about if there's discord in your partnership or discord in your relationship, asking yourself, are there things that I could reasonably do to reconnect with my partner? Now, if anyone is interested, I have a list of couples counseling questions that you can go over with your partner. Only do one or two. I've had friends or clients, they're like, Tiffany, I tried to go over all 17 with my partner. And I say, oh my gosh, this poor guy, you flooded him. One or two. Do not do more than that. So if you're interested, feel free to DM me and I can send you those list of questions. And it's just staying in that connection, staying in that consciousness with one another, and asking, what is it that you need from me? How can we move forward together in a healthy and whole way? Because the stigma around divorce, there's so much pain in our culture. You are like marked failure. Even though divorce is more common, when I was growing up, nobody divorced. You guys have to remember, I grew up in a time, divorce was unheard of. However, women were more stay-at-home moms. There was, most of the marriages at that time were arranged. There was less autonomy, less independence, less education. And so as each generation grows and there's more education and there's more awareness and more independence and marrying for love and these types of things, well, this gives more permission for people to leave their marriages. Yet the comments, the stares, the silent whispering, the wishing, and even though they may not say it directly, you can feel the judgment. And you didn't do anything wrong. You took care of yourself. You took steps for yourself. You took steps for your children, if you had any. And so this is where not getting because many times when people start to talk or wish, it's usually because they didn't have the courage to do what you did. So try not to internalize it as your own failure, but really look at it as perhaps these are people that wanted to do the very same thing, but they didn't have that courage, that strength, because you may get excommunicated. You may get shunned from your communities. And you may have to start somewhere else. We come from a culture of so much belonging. And when there's a divorce or if anything that causes shame upon our culture, well, guess what? That may mean it's so hard for you that you have to leave the very people and community that you've been a part of for a long time. Many times you could be married to somebody for 20, 30 years. Like, think about it, more than half your life. And I've seen within our Arabi culture, the other person's family will never speak to that partner again. And sometimes the kids. And I think to myself, isn't this so sad that you can spend more than half your life with someone and then you choose to divorce, could be mutual, and the other side of the family doesn't even speak to you again? So there's multiple layers of loss. The loss of the family unit you thought you had and wanted. There was the loss of your community, the loss of family members and people that you loved and cared about that will not speak to you again because of the divorce. And that speaks to the lack of healing and the lack of connection. And that could feel really unsafe for people. Sometimes when you're in a toxic marriage and you get divorced, it takes a long time to heal from that, particularly if the person was unhealthy, emotionally unsafe, abusive. It takes time. But one thing I can collectively say is that when people have divorced, do the work on themselves, heal those wounds within them, that they typically will meet partners, if that's their choice, that a lot of times they'll say, Tiffany, I cannot believe I met somebody that can give me this. And I had no idea how much my marriage suffocated me and impacted my self-esteem and impacted my sense of self-worth until I met my partner who sees me, hears me, cares about me, loves me, and we're both guardrails to each other and we're both rowing that boat together towards creating a healthy, loving family, good times, perhaps businesses too. I've seen that as well. So divorce is not as horrific as perhaps our culture wants it, has it made out to be. It's how we feel about ourselves around the divorce. And if you're clear in that, this is something that you need to do for you, then stand by that, be okay with that. I'm not saying it's not easy. There were many nights. I cried probably my first year of marriage, crying. I had a 3-year-old. I was all by myself. There was some challenges within my own family around the steps I took for myself. Everybody got over and everyone's fine. And now everyone forgot that I was ever married, which is hilarious to me. And so you have to remember that you can overcome these things, but you have to stay present to them and not bury them and not move right into the next relationship, but to heal those wounds of what caused the rupture to begin with. And then if you're married and you're thinking about divorce, I say really focus on the ruptures, assess your partner's emotional intelligence, assess their ability to be able to move through some of these things, and go get some help. Go get some help. So I don't know if there's any questions or if anybody had anything they wanted to offer around this topic, any experiences or anything of that nature. I'm open to answer any questions or offer anything around this. Or anybody want to challenge anything I've said, that's fine too. We can have a nice, healthy debate around that. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining this live. I really appreciate it. Remember, own your truth, own who you are, self-reflect. And thank you so much for being here. And being divorced doesn't mean it's a failure on your part. It just means that you wanted to do right by you in how you move forward. And please let any of those negative thoughts go. You took care of you. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful Sunday. And I hope to see you again next week on Lives. And also shoot me some messages on other topics you want me to talk about. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.